All right, let's build a shower. The first thing I need to address is there's a slight slope in this floor. I can tell by setting up my line laser and measuring down to the floor. So here I got 4 1/4, and here I got 4 5/8. So we got about a 3/8 slope down from this side of the shower to the other side. So the first thing I need to do is cut a temporary 2x4 along the entrance of the shower to keep the self-leveler that I'm going to pour from spewing all over the place. So now that we got our piece of wood in, I'm going to take this expanding foam and I'm going to squirt it in any hole that any self-leveler can make its way out of. And you don't need a lot of it. Now once the foam hardens, I like to use my jiggler and just cut off any excess foam that's sticking out that's just not needed. Our next step is to apply a self-leveling primer to our subfloor. What this does is it seals the wood so that it doesn't suck the moisture out of our self-leveler, and it gives it something to properly bond to. Now that the surface is clean, we're going to use a 3/8 inch nap roller and going to apply the self-leveling primer with this. One tip for pouring self-leveler, I like to screw in drywall screws throughout the floor and then measure up to my laser line. When they all read the same, I know the screws are at the same height. That will tell me when I'm pouring my floor that once the leveler gets up to the head of the screw that everything's level and I don't need to pour anymore. Now it's time to mix up the self-leveler. Now there's a bit of a science to this. You want to follow the manufacturer's recommendations to the best of your ability. Now this specific self-leveler requires 5 quarts of water to 1 50-pound bag. So what I have is my 2 mixing buckets, my bucket to measure my water out. This bucket has lines to tell me how many quarts that I'll be pouring. And then I have my bucket of clean water. You'll also want to use a mixing drill. You don't want to use a normal drill for this, otherwise you'll burn it up. Ask me how I know. So first, I'm going to measure out my water to 5 quarts. Now, you don't really want to breathe this stuff in, so I'm going to put on my respirator. Then I'm going to pour 1 bag into each of these buckets while I run my vacuum to catch most of the dust. Then I'm going to mix each bucket for 2 minutes, and then we're going to get pouring. Okay, so we've been mixing for 2 minutes. Here's the consistency that you kind of want to look for. And look at that, that's what we want. Yeah, we want a soupy. Now once you got it mixed, you kind of got to move fast. Try not to spill like I did either. But now we want to carry our buckets over. I'm going to set it into place, and I'm going to start pouring slowly from the back to the front. I'm working from the deepest spot to the shallowest spot. I'm also paying attention to my screws. I'll pour my second bucket. Okay. Now this tool isn't completely necessary, but it's really nice to have. It has a bunch of these narrow spikes on it that you can roll through the self-leveler and work it into place, and it pops any bubbles, it breaks up any chunks of unmixed leveler up, and it makes it real nice and smooth and gives it a good finish. Now it's called self-leveler, but it doesn't actually self-level. I mean, it will get close, but you kind of got to give it a hand and push it into place. You want to clean this stuff off quickly because it is like basically cement and it will ruin your tools. So now we just got to give it a few hours and this will harden. It does say to wait 24 hours before walking on it. So now we just got to let it do its thing. All right, so it's the next day. Everything's nice and cure. I'm going to flick on my laser and measure up to my laser line to make sure that everything's level. So it looks like that's 4 inches there and 4 inches there. Yeah, all right. That's perfectly level and ready for a shower pan.